with us? Sherry Stanley?
I don't see her yet.
No, not yet.
All right, so we're going to get the meeting started. It's 6:30 p.m. and I'm going to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
President Alvarado,
Here.
Vice President Suddeth, Director Stanley, Director Weiner,
Here.
Director Cepeda.
Here.
Okay, looks like we got a quorum, so let's do the next item, please.
1B, Pledge of Allegiance or Observation of Moment of Silence.
Oh,
Okay.
I forgot my flag. I was going to have my flag as the background.
I pledge allegiance
to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 2, Approval of Agenda.
All right. What is the will of the body on this?
The agenda as written.
We have a second?
Unmute. Somebody unmute.
I second.
We have a second. Okay.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado,
Yes.
Vice President Suddeth.
Yes.
Director Stanley. Absent. Director Weiner.
Yes.
Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Motion
Okay.
passes.
Next item, please.
Item 3, Public Comments, items not on the agenda.
Do we have any guests?
I did not receive any emails.
Okay, so is any
No guests.
no guests? Okay, so
No
you don't
guests.
have to read that long, tedious thing, Sasha. Go to the next item, please.
Item 4, Consent Calendar. 4A, approve the minutes of the regular board meeting held April 1st, 2020, regular board meeting held April 15th, 2020, and a special board meeting held April 20th, 2020.
Okay, what is the will of the body on this?
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
A second.
Okay, item's been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado,
Yes.
Vice President Suddeth. Yes. Director Stanley. Absent. Director Weiner.
Yes.
Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 5, Action Calendar. 5A, approve the creation and appointment of members to an ad hoc committee to review the process used for requests for proposals, qualifications for services.
My fellow board members, as you recall, when I was took the office of president, I said I was going to form a committee, ad hoc committee, that would deal with the review process for contracts, request proposals, and qualifications. Because of this COVID event, this was delayed a little bit more than I wanted it to be, but now I see that we're getting into a swing of doing these Zoom meetings, so I want to get this process started. So I'm recommending to the board an ad hoc committee to review the process for contracts, request for proposals, qualifications, qualifications for all contracted services. This committee will review these processes and provide a recommendation to the board within 60 days or no later than the first board meeting in July. If the committee needs more time, I ask that they let me know that in 30 days in advance. I am recommending the members to be Vice President Suddeth and Director Cepeda, who will chair this contract process committee. They both have extensive knowledge in this area, and I will serve as an alternate, having served on various boards and commissions that studied this issue as well. So, can I have a motion to approve this, please?
So moved.
I second.
Okay, have being moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado,
Yes.
Vice President Suddeth. Director Stanley. Absent. Director Weiner.
Yes.
Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, next item, please.
Item 5B, approve a resolution authorizing the general manager to enter into an agreement with ADP for comprehensive payroll and benefit services in an amount not to exceed $159,362 through June 30th, 2022.
All right, who's going to give us a presentation on this?
Justin.
Good evening, President Alvarado. Let me share my screen here. There we go. So I can log on to this PowerPoint. 1 second here. Here we go. So good evening again. My name is Justin Lovell. I'm the Administrative Services Department Manager. And tonight I'm going to present an item on comprehensive payroll and benefit services. So we're asking the board to adopt a resolution and to enter into an agreement with ADP to provide comprehensive payroll and benefit services tonight. So just to give you, a little bit of background, since I started last September as Administrative Services Department Manager, one of the things that I started looking at, and it's been more an organization-wide component as well, is really looking at our systems and processes within the Administrative Services Department. And one of the areas that continued to surface to the top was the our payroll processes. There seemed to be almost every pay period times when staff would have to call our vendor on payroll and work on issues. There were setup issues. It was for whatever reason how it was configured. There have been challenges, even though our payroll didn't change drastically from pay period to pay period. And so one of the things that came up, that takes a lot of time away from staff doing other things, trying to correct payroll. Because payroll is very important. That we need to be accurate every time. And so as it's come up, there happened to be more and more issues. And then as I was looking at additional systems, we want to move to additional paperless. We want to have better customer service for employees, better essentially employee-facing processes, or make it easier for employees to log on, see their time. And one thing that became very apparent since we've been a large mobile workforce is the difficulty of setting up the mobile, our timekeeping system is not, it's mobile able, like we could get onto it outside of the district's network, but it's challenging to set up. And so we've had issues occasionally with with employees having access even to enter their time. And then there's other services that we would like to improve. We want to have employees self-service. We want to make it easier for employees to be able to find past pay stubs on their own, electronic W-2s at the end of the year. A lot of the way the system is set up right now, many of the processes that I would think that should be automatic are not. Like they are. It takes a lot of manipulation on the reporting to get the reports right, and that's partially for taxes. Sometimes it's the year end, it's for the W-2 or the ACA reporting that's required. So those are just things we're looking at. We're trying to make improvements, and it just wasn't quite working out the way that we would like using the existing system. On the benefits side, we have a current, a consultant is essentially, with RGS, essentially handling a lot of the benefits administration. We have one HR analyst, it's a full-time, and then another HR analyst consultant that's assisting us with the benefits. And so it's a lot of the employee questions related to benefits are, it takes some time, and a lot of it's, let's say, routine task or questions or just verification that we would like to, as one of our initiatives, we're looking at how we can take essentially time, repetitive task, and how can we make it, have staff spend more time on more strategic tasks. So let me just move on just a little bit about essentially typical payroll processes, and a similar chart could be said for benefit administration. So we're looking at, each column are different components of the payroll process: time and attendance, administration, our banking, tax and compliance, service delivery. So currently, right now, we're doing all this in-house. on the payroll side, we have is essentially one accounting technician who is doing the majority of this work, and we have assistance from our finance supervisor and another temp accounting, accounting technician who is assisting with this. So, you know, as we were looking for solutions, we're thinking that it would be beneficial to the organization that we find a payroll vendor that would help us process process payroll, as well as having, you know, somebody that has a lot more payroll tax expertise. You know, admittedly, we're not the payroll tax experts, and so it's, you know, we occasionally will have to go and rely on some outside experts to help us with some configuration on tax setup. But we would like to have somebody who does this, you know, a day in and day out, and that would help us make sure that we get the taxes and everything correct. On the benefit side, it's a lot of other, there's the enrollment. We have the annual open enrollment. If somebody has a life-changing event, a marriage or birth of a child, there are different events where we work with them just to get staff enrolled. If they have questions about their benefits or access, those are things that staff would help with on that end. So, you know, as we started looking at different vendors, we started discussions with ADP. You know, really a lot of their the services that they offer is, we were talking about some of the issues that we're having, challenges that we would like corrected, and they were able to offer a lot of that services that we were looking for. So they had with their payroll service, with their comprehensive payroll, there's a dedicated payroll specialist who's essentially one of their staff members who's dedicated to our account, as well as a host of other, essentially a customer support team that we could rely on. So if staff have just plain questions about access to the account, resetting passwords, those kind of things, they can assist with many of those items very quickly, and they're open, you know, most of it, you know, pretty early in the morning to late at night. And then, you know, ADP also is asking about, you know, offering a a benefit process. But before I move on to that, I just want to show you, essentially, you know, with ADP, everything's in blue. Really what would happen next with us is that if we moved to ADP, the blue maintains us. Like, we are still responsible for several functions within the payroll processing. You know, we do need to approve the hours, review the time. On the end user side, that could be on the end user side that could you know, they would still be the same. They would enter it electronically, their time, their leave request. Supervisors would still approve their time. So that's not really going to change on the employee side. It's just on the processing side. The staff has considerably less amount of work to do related to payroll. And benefits would be very similar. We would need to approve any new hires and new changes before we pass it on to ADP to assist that for us. And just on the benefit side, we're not changing our broker. We're maintaining the same benefits. CalPERS will continue to offer our medical benefits. We have a broker, Keenan, who will continue to negotiate for us for like dental benefits and our other like life insurance and some of the other smaller benefits. That won't change for us. We will still have that power for negotiation. It's just ADP would be administering for us. So just some of the improvements that we would see that from ADP. As I mentioned, there's a dedicated payroll specialist with employee support team. They also have, on the benefit side, there is a dedicated, essentially a benefit specialist who could answer employees' questions about the different plans and help us with the open enrollment and enrolling new employees into the benefit side. They would also be helping us just monitor our the invoices and making sure that we're getting charged just for the active employees and correcting any, reconciling any invoices on the benefit side. ADP also offers, they have payroll and tax compliance experts. One big benefit for us is, since they have so many clients, they've really developed a strong technology. So there's a mobile interface. So, as we're looking at having more greater mobile workforce, there is that component of we can have an app on the phone that will work, or somebody can go on the website and we know that would work. Another big benefit is a lot of our onboarding and processes that are heavily paper driven right now, which is a little more challenging as we are, working a lot. Most of our staff is working remotely, is allowing the paperless forms and enrollment. That would be a big benefit for us. So, and I mentioned there's a team for benefits, questions, and assistance, and then all of their systems are integrated for timekeeping, payroll, benefits. And another component that ADP is offering as part of this package is employee evaluation system. We have a separate system right now for employee evaluation, and putting everything into one package makes a lot of sense for how we're managing all the employees. So I'm happy to answer any questions. As tonight, our staff recommendation is that the board adopt a resolution authorizing the general manager to execute an agreement with ADP. And so I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Mr. President, you're on mute.
Sorry. Let's start in the usual fashion. Did Director Stanley get here? No Director Stanley?
It looks
Yeah,
like
she's
she
here.
is on.
She is.
She's, let me see if I can unmute her.
Oh.
She hasn't-
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
now we can hear you. You have any questions, Director Stanley?
I have a comment and a question.
Okay, go right ahead.
The comment being that when I had employees myself, I used ADP. I loved them, and I was able to enter payroll from South Korea. So I just thought it was fantastic. And I didn't have to know anything. I just sent in my time stuff for my people. The question that I have is when I used ADP, since I was the only supervisor, I was the one who entered all the time for people and hours and stuff like that. So what you're saying here, if I'm heard correctly, is the employees will enter their hours and their supervisor will approve it, and then it goes to ADP. Is that correct?
Yeah, so before the hours go to ADP, we would have one of our staff members in finance review and do a final check of all the hours before we send it off to ADP. But yeah, yes, they would enter their own time.
Okay.
Justin, can you clarify also that that's our current practice as well?
Yeah, that is. So like we do have electronic timekeeping. So staff are entering it. They have a deadline, 10 a.m. every other Friday. And then 10 a.m. that next Monday is when supervisors need to approve the time, and then it gets locked, and then we will begin processing. And ADP, their time is essentially identical to their for us, so it wouldn't change on the employee side.
Okay, so I have one last question. So directors are a little different, and we like to note when we go to meetings, even if it's more than 6, just because. Will ADP understand that they only count up to 6, or is there a mechanism that we can tell them?
Yeah, so we did discuss the director pay with ADP before making the selection, and we told them the circumstances, and they said they can make essentially forms and rules around that we'd have to specify how the form would look. So I'm hopeful that we would be able to make it where, as directors, you can log into ADP and enter essentially your hours, your meetings, attendance, and we would have that recorded through there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Stanley. Director Weiner, any questions?
I do. Did we include the, or estimate the cost of conversion, including training, to move all of our stuff into ADP?
Yeah, so the cost tonight includes all the conversion fees on the ADP side. So if there are, if we did not factor in our own staff time that we would need to pull the data from our system, make sure it's clean, and give it to ADP. So the cost tonight does include the ADP component of the implementation and the setup for them. That's that setup fee is $7,400, and it's discounted from what they said their original. The typical fee is about $36,000.
I know that when you bring in a new software product, there's all these costs associated with retraining staff and extracting all the data so that they can feed it into their system. So,
Right.
And be sure that ADP warrants all interfaces, particularly the general ledger. A lot of times they say they can handle your data from your general ledger, but then it turns out that what your general ledger produces in a spreadsheet, they're not ready for. So depending on how you do the handoff, that's all that stuff is important.
Yes.
So make sure they warrant that you're not going to be spending 3 years trying to figure out how to get your stuff looking like their stuff.
Yeah.
And
They did talk. Yeah, that is one of the customized reports as part of this package, is to make sure that we've got a general ledger interface that works for us.
And then make sure that we have a person that periodically checks that all the money that they have gotten from us gets to the feds and the state. I had a friend who hired somebody to do theirs, and all these restaurants in Berkeley and another town next door to Berkeley, they all lost all their tax money. The guy went to Brazil. So be sure that our, at least twice a year, check our account.
Sure.
And then we refer to, far too often, we refer to labor as a, what do we call them, human capital. I'd like to use different words so we don't commodify people. And, like workforce, employees, woman power, or other terms for what is referred to in this report as human capital. That's my personal preference, because I don't like the idea of people being commodified. Yeah, that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Weiner. Director Spada?
All right, I think I'm off mute. Justin, thank you so much for this. This is great. This is something that I was hoping we were going to be moving forward to soon, and thank you for your work on this presentation. I have a few questions about ADP. I am familiar with them as well. The fees that they're looking to charge, does that also account any customization? So if we were to get any new reports or any new setups for payroll, like one of the directors mentioned, if we need something different for the directors, is that an extra fee? If we were to make benefit changes along the way, are they going to charge a fee to input a new carrier or input a new benefit plan? Do you know that?
So according to the agreement, right, so our fees are negotiated from what we have now. So if there is a change, they basically have a right to quote us a fee for that change. So depending, hopefully, if it's big, depending on how many hours it would take them to do some modifications. So they have the right. Depending on what our change is, I don't know if we would have a large charge or not on that.
I would just like to see it in writing if we can, because the changes could be very considerable. And it's going to depend on their IT, what their IT department says is going to cost. I work with a lot of different clients that have ADP, and one of them had a $14,000 fee just to change their dental plan. So if we were to make changes, I just want to make sure that we're not overpaying for something, because there might be other options available to us that don't nickel and dime us around the block.
Sure.
So just that customization is one of the questions. ADP also does broking. So I don't know if we're able to have ADP both manage and broker the benefits, and in exchange be able to lower the fee. Because if they broker the benefits, maybe we pay them an annual fee and we don't pay commission, which in turn will lower the premium that we have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to figure out if we give them a little bit more to also broker, we lower the commission, or we have zero commission, and it's a win-win.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we have that agreement, or we can have that agreement with them too.
Yeah, we did not discuss that component since we already have our own broker and our medical through CalPERS, which is such a large medical provider. We didn't want to get into changing the way that we have benefits negotiated for us, but they would administer it on our behalf. But if it's something you'd like to see, hopefully if they're, we get it working out pretty well, that's something we could talk to them about in the future.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm just trying to see ways to be able to save money anywhere that we can, if we're able to, by negotiating, especially if we're going into a new contract. I'm sure they would want to take as much of our business as possible. The other thing that they do, and on page 18 of the PDF, it says that we are saving approximately a net savings of $129,000 related to human resources consulting services for benefits and general human resources assistance will be eliminated. Are we also getting their HR package from ADP?
Yeah, so not the full HR package, is really the benefit administration package. So our savings is currently, we're using from RGS, one of the HR consultants, and principally a lot of that person's role is the benefits administration and answering staff questions. And so moving to ADP on the benefits side, ADP would take all that burden off of us, and so that particular consultant work, we wouldn't need to have that anymore.
Okay, so it's more related, that sentence there is more related to the benefit side, and not, when I think of HR, I'm thinking of hiring and firing practices and leave practices, and that to me is what the HR was. But this is more
right.
on the administration side.
Just benefits administration. We, all of the other HR functions is still internal to our organization.
Okay, and I think I'm almost done. For the CalPERS, I'm assuming that we've talked to them and they know, and they're able to give us a file feed that we need to be able to provide to CalPERS.
Yes, yeah, that was actually one of our key questions. They do have a few other public agencies, special districts, that they have already generated a CalPERS file, from my understanding of talking to our sales rep, and so that should, so we anticipate that would be doable on their end as well.
Perfect. And then we're looking to make this effective as of what date for them to come on?
Well, so, once we have an executed contract, which would be within a couple weeks, their anticipated implementation timeline is approximately 12 weeks. Their clients, typically, they're able to go live within 12 weeks. So if we're able to follow that schedule, the 12-week schedule, I would, by the end of August, first part of September, we would be going live with ADP.
So for the open enrollment period, more or less, is when employees will be able to start using the open enrollment.
Right. Yeah, because our open enrollment is on a calendar year basis, and so it would be live for the open enrollment.
Perfect. I have no other questions at this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Cepeda. Vice President Sutter, questions, comments?
Yes. So, so the amount that's quoted as a not to exceed, is that total or is that per year?
That is the total amount. So our annual fee is approximately $76,000, and then it also includes the implementation fee.
And then, so will ADP be responsible for the changes to like any of our interfaces with third-party systems, or like the banks and the benefits providers, or are we responsible for that?
So we are still responsible for those interfaces. On the banking side, essentially how it works is they tell us the amount, right before they're ready to fund, and they use it. So the direct deposits can be coming from their bank, and then we essentially pre-fund them from our bank account, through a debit or ACH charge. On the benefit side, there is a way so they can be integrated, as in they'll have access to work on our behalf within the benefits.
If there's any fees associated?
That is included of the total fee for any of those.
Okay.
Events, yeah.
All right. I want to make sure that. And then how are we going to make sure that the payroll processes, what kind of guarantee are they going to give us on the success, the quality of those payroll processes? What are they doing to their, because I've worked with ADP for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess some of the tricks, if for anybody who hasn't, some of the hangups that I see, and which is why I don't agree with rolling all of our processes into ADP. I like their payroll administration. I like some of the automated administration. I don't like their HR and their benefit administration. So I'm glad that we're sticking with one part of it, not putting all of our eggs in one basket. One of the things I do want to look at is who's going to be making sure that they're compliant with some of the regulatory things, like DOL compliance, because my experience with them is that we have to audit the audit team of them to make sure that they are compliant with some of the regulatory, making sure that people who, I know we don't have many instances of people working out of class, but people who are working out of class or who have overtime or who have split wages or who have average wages, that is being paid and it's being paid correctly. That we are ensuring that fees that are paid for, and Director Weiner just mentioned something very similar about taxes, but also child support and back taxes, that those are actually being paid to the agencies that they're due, and that they're being paid on time, and that we're getting those records. So these are questions that I think we need to be asking, but I want to make sure that we're getting that guarantee for the success and the quality of that, and that we're getting those reports in a timely manner. And I don't know if those questions have been asked already, but I'm kind of asking about it.
Yeah. So we have talked about all of those, whether the garnishments, the the tax compliance, and so they're part of what they're offering is the guarantee that those would be paid to the right agency on time. So the other part that you're asking is that we would just, as part of staff, because this doesn't go away, we still have a responsibility to make sure that they're doing what they promised us to do for the administration. So part of it as staff is that we would have to essentially periodically check on what they're doing, and that's happening, what they promised us to do.
Just a couple more. Who's going to make sure that we do the data integration during the migration? Who's going to test the integrity of that data integration, and then the test afterwards?
Yeah. So on the data integration, it's really be a team effort. We've got on the HR side, we'll have an HR analyst. On the payroll side, our finance supervisor and the accounting technician who currently do payroll and know all about at least our wages and our rates and the rules for the MOUs, that they would be verifying any of that information before go live. So I would be overseeing that work as well.
And then my last question is, we're not displacing anyone by using ADP, are we?
That's correct. There's the current person who processes payroll. There's enough work within the finance division. It'll still be doing the proportion of payroll is not going away. And then there's enough duties within finance that they'll still have plenty of work to do.
I saved that one for last because that's important question.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Setup, and thank you, board members, for all your questions, because I had 3 questions, but you all beat me to the punch, so that's the nice thing about going last. You can get your questions answered beforehand. All right, before we go to vote on this thing or ask for a motion to approve, does anybody else have any questions or any other comment they would like to make? All right, seeing none, I'm going to entertain a motion to approve this.
I so move.
Been moved.
I
Can
so
have a
move.
second? Not everyone at once.
Is Cheryl already second?
Yes.
I thought I heard a
Okay.
second, yeah.
All right. So the item's been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado,
Yes.
Vice President Pettis,
Yes.
Director Stanley,
Yes.
Director Weiner, Director Weiner,
Yes.
Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Next item, please.
Item 5C, approve a resolution adopting actions that the West County Wastewater District Board can implement themselves that demonstrates the board's leadership and support for environmental sustainability.
All right, who's presenting this?
Good evening, President Alvarado. This is Andrew Powell, the Deputy General Manager.
Okay.
Michael Savannah will be giving the details of this report. I just want to start 2 parts. And the first part is as was just mentioned in the title, the recommended actions the board would implement themselves. In other words, actions that are directly your actions on the board, what you would like to do, what you'd like to see, and what your behaviors are to generate and demonstrate that leadership. The rest of the actions are other actions that are furtherance of board policy, things that are in the climate action plan and other board policies that you've directed us and wanted us to implement. And so these are some of the specifics to try to implement those aspects of the policy. And then Michael will run through this and talk to you a little bit more detail and answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
Good evening. Michael Savannah, the Infrastructure and Planning Department Manager. I hope you're all well. With this, we were asked to come up with some ideas for items initiatives that the board could take on to show support and leadership towards our greenhouse gas and environmental stewardship goals. So the IMP department went out and worked with some consultants that we were already sort of working with on our greenhouse gas baseline initiative, as well as a couple of other initiatives. We did some brainstorming with them as well as internal brainstorming, and we came up with a list of initiatives that we thought the board could implement in response to this request. What we found while we were going through that is a number of initiatives that staff also thought that staff could request organization-wide and not just in the boardroom. So what you'll see in this report are a couple of sections. There's a section that talks about board recommended actions, and as Andrew explained, these are actions that the board could implement immediately that would have impact on our goals and would show leadership from a board level. There are 2 other sections in this report. There's a section that talks about items that no, I'm sorry, there's another section in this report that talks about items that staff will consider implementing in the future that will be implemented district-wide and not just in the boardroom, that will also have an impact on pushing us closer to our goals. These, I think, are really good initiatives, and here for your consideration this evening. I am open for any questions that you may have about the report or the initiatives in general.
All right, let's go in order. Director Stanley?
I have nothing.
Director Weiner?
I have a couple things.
Right ahead.
I think as a general rule, the vegetarian requirement would be very controversial. In other words, if all of our events were vegetarian, I think we might get a little bit of pushback. We might try having mediocre meat dishes and excellent vegetable dishes for a year maybe, because I definitely have had excellent vegetarian dishes and wouldn't mind all vegetarian all the time. But I'm sure I don't represent the general rule. The other thing was plane travel, which I don't think we will be going to all Zoom meetings all the time. Although I've seen some very large ones, I don't think I don't see how the networking works, you know, for big time events. So I'm sure there'll be some plane travel, and my suggestion would be to offset mitigation of plane travel by planting trees. I know there's a bunch of scams out there for tree planting, but I know the Nature Conservancy has a project, and I know that California Relief Urban and they're called California Relief, and they do urban forest restoration. And I don't know how many trees a plane flight covers, but the more trees, the better, I think. So that would be my suggestion regarding plane travel. I like all the other suggestions, and particularly the suggestions for the second set of suggestions. They all look good to me.
Thank you, Director Weiner. Director Cepeda?
I'm off mute. All right. Michael, Andrew, and staff, thank you so much. This is a great report. This makes me very happy that we are considering this, especially as we are looking into reopening our world once again, and this little break that we all have had has given us bluer skies and fresher air all around the world. So as we are reopening, it's great to be able to also have these policies take us into this next generation of AC after COVID, and hopefully in a much better environment. I have a few questions, and one of them for the board policy. I also agree on number 4, if we can figuring out carbon, there's actually a calculator that we can use to put in the mileage traveled by plane and how many trees you have to plant. So Director Weiner, I'm with you 100%, and we can figure out there's some local nonprofits that we might be able to use to help them plant trees, so we don't necessarily have to plant them ourselves. We can plant them around our district area, so that they don't all have to be in front of our lawn, because pretty soon we're going to have more trees than entryway. The other, I really like the recommendations for staff. See if we could also do the first bullet point, implement recycling practices in the boardroom, including proper use of recycling and trash containers. Can we also add compost? I believe I might have asked before, and I don't remember the answer. I don't remember if it's because our waste management system company doesn't pick up the compost, but maybe we can contact them to let them know that we'll have a green bin. And we can do that for the boardroom, especially after we eat. We don't want to throw away any compost. And bullet point, I believe it's 4, eliminating the purchase of and use of plastic utensils district-wide. Any chance that we could also add styrofoam? The city of Richmond already bans restaurants from using styrofoam when they do takeout. and not the rest of the county has adopted that rule. But maybe we can start figuring this out and letting restaurants know if they want to have our business to give us takeout containers that are not styrofoam. You can usually tell where in the area you're going by your takeout. And if it's styrofoam, you went to unincorporated county. Just a quick note on the meat. I am not a vegetarian, but I do know that there's a shortage of meat. So again, this is also very promptly because we don't know where our meat producing companies will be at when we reopen for COVID. And we have what they call impossible burgers and impossible meat. So we could always substitute that. I heard that it's supposed to be good. I actually had an impossible burger once, so that it was a good option to not having to have meat. Even though I do like meat. I think this is a really good goal that we can strive for it. And I agree with Director Wiener, maybe not all at once, but maybe slowly transitioning us in there. Maybe using some of that impossible meat to substitute it. So just a thought. But overall, I really like this report. Thank you so much for putting this together and bringing it forth. That is it for me, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Director Cepeda. Vice President Sutter?
Thank you. Nice report. Love it. All of it, especially the no meat. Love it.
Of course you would.
I love that the best of all. And I'm going to diverge from my wonderful compadres. And I'm going to say, you dive right in. Just take the meat out. Take it out right away. It's much. Since we are going gung-ho with all the rest of this, and we're being such mavericks in the district with everything else, I say we mavericks with no meat. Usually I don't say that. Usually I leave everybody alone with their meat. But no, we're going to be mavericks with the recycling. We're going to be mavericks with the no meat. There you go. I love it. I think it's wonderful. I think the only thing that I would add is with the recycling of the paper, I say reuse the paper too. Use scrap paper to print on if you're not going to be taking the paper outside of the district. So if you're only printing something, an inner office memo that you want to share with somebody or a draft contract, print on the other side of something that you already printed. Save some paper, but you don't have to print. Tell people stop printing emails they don't need to print. It may be on the bottom of Lisa. Somebody has that on the bottom of their email about not printing, think about the environment or something like that before you print this email. So if we can have that on the bottom of, emails or something like that, think about because if you don't need to print it, don't print it. That's the only thing I would add, but I like it. I think it's a great start. And meat. You don't know. Anyway.
Thank you, Vice President Sutter. Are you all set?
Thank you.
All set? Okay. Let me give you my 2 cents. First, let's start with your last comment on the emails, putting on the emails that we should not print this if you don't have to. I think that's a great idea to put it on all our. I think that go a long way to saving a lot of paper, because people automatically now they just say, yeah, let me print this just for the sake of printing. So that I think is an excellent idea. I like the idea of Director Wiener as well. I myself am not a vegetarian, but I do eat vegetarian food. So I wouldn't want to approve this by just saying vegetarian. We need to add additional language to that because not everybody is a vegetarian. So we have to be reticent of that fact as well. So I don't mind. And what Director Wiener said made a lot of sense. And I really enjoyed what Director Cepeda said as well. I think that he made some great points there, especially about the compost. So you know, we should try and strengthen it where we can, but let's not go overboard either. You know, I respect the fact that Vice President Sudduth is a vegetarian, and I believe that at every meeting we're addressing that. You know, we get her vegetarian stuff, and sometimes I'll even pick off that vegetarian meal. But like I said, I'm a meat eater, so, you know, not that I eat a lot of meat nowadays, but I always like to have the option. So I think I'm going to ask our attorney, how is it that we can modify this document? Everybody made a lot of suggestions tonight, what should go in there. So how do we modify this with approval?
You can direct staff to bring it back with the modifications, or you can right now, with your motion, tell staff which modifications you want incorporated, and they will just do that after the document's approved.
Okay, what is the pleasure of the body? Do you want to have them bring this back, or do you want to just tell them what we should change it with, how to revise it?
Well, I have a comment.
Go ahead, Director Stanley.
Well, it says recommended actions. It's not saying that we're absolutely, you know, in stone. So it's recommended actions. I mean, you know, on number 3, it says we promise to bicycle, walk, carpool, etc. Well, you know, that's not going to happen for me at all. And I'm not concerned about it. So, you know, the fact that these are recommended, you know, it leaves it open to be fluid, I think.
Is that true, Mick? Because it says resolution on here.
And unmute though. I think that the recommended action is to adopt the resolution. So that doesn't mean that the policy you're adopting is a recommendation.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So this is actually a resolution. So what is the will of the body? Director Weiner, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I think maybe we could ask for it to come back with the language altered so that, for example, the transportation section to the board member. It says so directly. So I don't think we need to worry about that. It is just a recommendation where possible, it says.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be good to talk about moving toward vegetarian meals at all events, but feedback made, because I know for our annual staff event, meat is the theme. Giant chunks of meat, actually, which I like, but it's nowhere near. There's no vegetarian or vegan options during that event. So, and I think staff really likes that event. So that's what I was particularly thinking of. So I think being more specific about how we'll mitigate and bring back that, or mitigate the air travel. Sherry sent out a really great idea of having urban tilth plant trees. I don't know if they fruit trees on their property. I don't know if we paid for that, they could even deal with that. So
right.
That would be more research. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my opinion, we should bring it back with language that is exact where it can be, and you know, ask us to where we can't necessarily do it.
Yeah. Director Cepeda?
Yeah, I want to make sure that we also understand, are we looking for meat or are we looking for protein, right? Because there's that Impossible Burger meat, for example, is extra protein, and the flavor is pretty much the same. People can't tell the difference between the two when they eat them. So are we looking for protein, or do we actually want to bite into a cow?
I think Director Weiner says it all.
Director Weiner, I always have a me.
Yeah, we're looking for meat. We're not looking for impossible meat. We're looking for meat.
All right, so just want to make sure that we know the difference, because if there's protein, and we're looking for that protein. There's a lot of other
Yes, sir.
sources.
Yes, Director Cepeda. Thank you.
And one other thing, can we also
Sure.
get training on technology? Something that Director Sedith mentioned made me think of this. If we're able to get training on how to use technology so we are not printing, right? How do you use your PDF agenda that you get to write notes on it,
Mhm.
and then be able to save it? Like right now, I have a bunch of notes on my PDF, and I can save it. I don't have to print it. It's there. And I'm done with it without having to print it. So just learning how to use technology in different ways can maybe help us save in printing paper. And I think this is a great way of having some good PR. Not that we have bad PR, but additional good PR for the district, to be able to frame it as a way that we're going back into AC after COVID, and we are having all these great thoughts to not go backwards, but continue going forward. And I would like to ask the board to make recommendations to amend this and adopt it now, then for them to bring it back around. I believe we have other agenda items to deal with later this month and then next month as well. So I don't want to have to put more time in our future agendas. So that's just my thought there.
Thank you for the recommendation. Vice President Sutter?
So as a compromise from my vegan loving self, so can we just say moving towards adopt a more vegetarian robust menu, something like that?
We can certainly do that, I believe.
Because that doesn't leave out the possibility
The amount of meat options.
that you animal eating people can more meat. But if you say adopting a more vegetarian robust, which means we could have that. And the other thing is, what I did not see, what I would like to see, and I was thinking about it when Cesar just said it, is could we add Miss Lisa, maybe you can help me with this one. Talking about eliminating in-person meetings and hosting, these Zoom meetings when possible, because that does cut down on needing to be in the building and using electricity and using, so when possible, we can do this.
So the limitation with that is the Brown Act. And so the only reason that we're able to do these at this time is because of the governor's temporary change to the Brown Act that is allowing for this.
Yeah.
So it may be something, and certainly Nick knows more about this than myself, if it was something that the governor continued, and I would imagine he probably will continue it for some time, we can do it. But I think that past that point, we would be limited on our ability because of the public participation. Nick, feel free to correct me or add. Or
Okay, wait. Let me correct myself. I don't mean just for the board. I also meant for the staff.
Oh, well, for staff, we definitely plan to utilize more Zoom meetings because, for example, we've struggled to meet with our supervisors with any regularity, and we've now accomplished a weekly call with all the supervisors over the last several weeks using Zoom. We also are looking at, in furtherance of some of the environmental goals, of having a portion of staff potentially working remotely more frequently, and Andrew will talk a little bit about that. That's a huge environmental impact by cutting down on a commute. So there are definitely things that we will be doing because they make sense from the things that we wanted to implement as a result of COVID, and because it helps us with our environmental goals.
Right. So I just wanted to see something on here about eliminating, because there was something that was said about driving and greenhouse gases, that I just want to see something to that effect.
So I want to clarify, though, that this report is very specific to the board. This is not specific to staff. We, as staff, will definitely be looking at different, and that's why you see that second set of recommendations are things that staff is considering district-wide. Like, it doesn't make sense to say no straws in the boardroom and then have straws somewhere else, for example.
Okay, so that's where, okay, it makes sense because it said something about all district computers. That's why I mentioned that. But,
exactly.
So Nick, tell me about this. Tell me about this for the meetings.
I'm sorry, ask your question one more time.
I wanted Mick to answer you, to respond to what you said about the meetings.
Oh, with regard to the board meetings, the Brown Act, is always challenging, but it does allow for teleconference meetings, and teleconference includes meetings it's not only by phone or conference call, it's by any electronic means.
Right.
There are some rules you're going to have to follow if you want to do that, but you can certainly do board, and the primary rule you'll have to follow is that at least a quorum of the board has to be within the boundaries of the district to do teleconference meetings by electronic means. But other than that, it's manageable.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know that. Good to know.
I'm mostly thinking about our committee meetings or things like that where we don't have to continue to bring a lot of staff or keep staff around. I'm really thinking about the committee meetings. Okay.
That absolutely makes sense. The Zoom technology has been great for being able to get people together, but it also there is some level of burnout. So I think people will be able to manage Zoom much better going forward when it's not the only mode of communication, but it definitely has been able to facilitate more people participating, because sometimes we're challenged by getting everybody in the room at the same time.
So could we add something like that that just says something about where possible or where practicable or something like that?
For the board?
And yeah.
We can add an item, certainly, and add a bullet that says, and I did want to say perhaps if there's doesn't sound like there's consensus about what is being recommended overall. So what I might recommend that we could include in the resolution, you can add the bullet that you said, Vice President Suddeth, if the board wants, and we could also put something that's more clear about, these are the board is committing to these in spirit and is moving toward utilizing or, adopting these on a more consistent basis as possible, because not everything is maybe possible to be implemented as of effective immediately. So something there gives you the spirit of what I think you're trying to accomplish without over-committing to something that you may not be completely ready to commit to at this moment. That might be a way to alter the resolution a bit.
So the two would be, the one would be about the don't print this if you don't have to. That one?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we would keep that. I mean, that's a general policy. I mean, it's generally the policy we follow as staff anyway. And as you know, we're pushing very hard for things to be paperless. So you're not in, we're really cutting out a lot of printing. But for you, we could add that specific item you mentioned about meetings if you want it, if the board wants that, and then just put in some language that is more, gives you slightly more flexibility, if that's what you want.
Is that satisfactory, Vice President Zeta?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any more questions?
No, sir.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Director Stanley.
Well, I would like to know from Mick, rather than calling this a resolution, can we make this kind of a living document where it's in flux as we're figuring out life as it evolves here, and rather than a resolution, could it be something else?
Well, resolutions by their nature are living documents. They can always be amended as circumstances dictate. So, primarily what a resolution of this nature is an expression of board policy, and as board policy changes, you can update it. And I think some of the language that Lisa recommended is probably a pretty good idea to say, look, these are really policies and goals. We'll do our best to meet them, and we intend to address and modify them as we go along.
Yeah, okay. Maybe it could be one of those documents that we look at once a year.
You certainly
Okay.
could.
All set, Director Stanley?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Director Weiner? You're on mute. You're on mute, Director Weiner. We cannot hear you.
I got it.
All right, there you go.
It was a combination of technology sort of working. I pushed my space bar, but it was only producing spaces on the text of the chat. But now I can't remember what was the topic that I wanted to bring up, so it couldn't have been that important.
All right, so you're all set?
I think so.
All right, if you remember, just raise your hand. I think we discussed a lot of things here, but I think the way that really we should go with this is with that language in there that says we're not, you know, these are things that we're going to work to and strive to, and that way we can, you know, later on if we want to come back and revisit this in a year, we can do that. But as long as the changes, and I think staff know the changes that we want, basically. I don't know. I'm speaking for staff, but maybe I should let Lisa do that. Lisa, do you think you'd be comfortable
Yes.
in us approving this tonight?
Yes, I think we understand. We can add the bullet about the meetings, and then we'll add language that the resolution is more of an expression of these are goals that the board is working toward.
Okay, sounds good. And then also remember to make the change about the vegetarian, that we're working towards that, as Director Sutter says.
Got it.
All right. So then, with that said, I'll entertain a motion to approve this with those changes.
Make a motion.
I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Vice President Sutter. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado,
Yes.
Vice President Sutter,
Yay.
Director Stanley,
Yes.
Director Weiner,
Yes.
Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Next item, please.
Next item is 6 information reports. 6A, receive an update on West County wastewater's response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
All right. Who's giving us the update?
I'll be doing that. Good evening, President Alvarado and board members. It's Andrew Plow, the Deputy General Manager again. And I won't read through the whole report. It's there. I'll just highlight a couple of points that have changed, that we're continuing to comply with all the county orders, and there were some major changes since the last meeting, and that was the county order requiring face coverings, as well as the most recent one, which extended the orders through the end of May, that did also ease construction contracts. And so that was the most significant change for us in sort of the, as Director Cepeda has mentioned a couple of times, the return to work. And I think what I'd like to emphasize there is that for us, what we're looking for is sort of planning a safe and phased return to the office, because we really have been working. It's not necessarily a return to work, it's a return to having more people present at our facilities than we currently do. And so what we've been looking at is how to accomplish multiple goals with that. And Lisa referred a little bit to that earlier. For example, we're currently working with 28 of us, working remotely part or most of the time. And if we can continue to do that kind of thing into the future, that goes a long way towards reducing our administrative carbon footprint. One of the biggest things that contributes to our carbon footprint is the commuting outside of the operations, the actual operations of the treatment plant, et cetera. But in the administrative office, that's a lot more than reducing plastic bottles and things like that. So if we can continue to do also accomplish having less people in the office at one time, so we're looking at staggered shifts. We're continuing to work with our space planner, who is working with us to try to help us create some more space within the building. And now we're adjusting how we're talking about that with the space planner to see how could we create some more spaces where people, when we do get back and have more people in the office, how do we keep people separated? How do we keep them safe? How do we have larger or more frequent meeting areas where people can be separated? Taking a look at circulation patterns within the office. Because what we're also trying to pay attention to is that this is not going to go away. It's not going to be that, okay, this is over now, everything's back to normal. This is going to be a long transition. It's quite possible we'll see a resurgence in the fall, and we need to be prepared for that. So we're trying to make sure that a lot of the things that we do now are things that will help us in the future, and that's improving our ability to work remotely, improving our electronic technology and use of it, improving how we can use the space, learning how we can work on staggered shifts, and a whole other host of things like that. They'll also help us if we have an earthquake and we can't work in the office, and how we can continue to be productive remotely. So those are the things that we've been looking at, and we're continuing to bring some more of the collections workers back, because we have to do a little bit more maintenance than we were doing. That was sort of the biggest group that was not able to be in the office and be productive. And so we're working on how we can do that, keep them safe, stagger those shifts, but still have more of that maintenance activity going on. And then later, as the orders loosen up, how we bring more administrative and project staff back into the office, but how we also continue to work with less people in the office and remain productive. So if you have any further questions, we'd be happy to answer those.
All right, let's go in order. Director Stanley?
Okay, regarding face masks, I know, me personally, I was wearing one of those N95 masks, and I had like a slightly hysterical panic attack because I couldn't get enough air, and I was ripping things off, clothing off my body. I'm not going to go into it. It was just embarrassing. But so I want to. Sometimes the N95 masks aren't the best because they are a little bit more restrictive, and maybe cloth mask or just the old-fashioned blue paper kind might be easier for some people. So I'm just throwing that out there. Also, I like the idea, Andrew, of the staggered shifts, and and yeah, to think that this pandemic thing is gone, is done, is ridiculous. So I like the idea of more people working from home for everybody's safety, and also for the environment, of course. But this is just such a great way for us to investigate what works and doesn't work, and even things like driving from the plant to the admin building or back, or vice versa. Maybe we need to just get larger screen TV type things so the people at one location can talk to the people at another location. They don't even have to drive to there. But everything that you're doing sounds great, and I personally absolutely support the idea of keeping more people working at home. Thank you.
Is that it? Thank you. Director Wiener?
Yeah. So I remember now what I was going to say, and that is my daughter works for a firm, and they said they're not going to come back to the office till October. So I think the general rule is people have experimented with this remote meeting style, and they're going to keep seeing if it works to cut down on commuting. So that's a good thing. I did have only one. I saw a news piece in a couple of Wall Street Journal and NBC News or something. They were talking about testing for COVID byproducts in sewage as a way to estimate new cases and where areas where COVID was starting up. That and I think I saw that San Jose was in on the research. So the city of San Jose. So I'm just bringing that up because I don't know if anybody else has read those articles.
Okay, thank you for the information, Director Weiner. Director Cepeda?
Director Weiner, I read a similar article as well, and I wasn't sure if that's something that we could do and if it was needed. But other than that, there is talked about a new strand already of COVID-19, possibly COVID-20 out there. So it's scary, and that one is more infectious, and it has a lot more symptoms. So hopefully we can keep our people working from home as much as possible and continue the social distancing. And for the N95 mask, what I understand is those are for medical professionals only. The rest of the public, we should be using regular face masks. I made one out of an old t-shirt. So we should keep N95 masks for the medical professionals because there is a shortage of those out there. Other than that, Andrew, this is a good report. Thank you for that. I forwarded a few things to, in case you guys want to go, there's a lot of webinars out there on people reopening, and they're calling it return to work because a lot of corporations, a lot of offices and stuff closed completely. We're half and half, right? We're going back, half of the employees are physically working at the plant. So that's why they're calling it return to work. But another, we're all continuing to work. But there's a lot of webinars. I don't know if you want for me to forward you any of those. I work in the medical or the insurance industry. And that's all that we're talking about right now is how to get the country back into the workforce safely. So if you like, I can forward you some as I come around them. That
would be great, Director Cepeda. Vice President Sutter?
Yes. So thanks for the report. I think the only thing that I will add to this, it's good for people to work at home. I work at home. I'm my whole staff working at home. They will be transitioning back to the office. We will probably be doing shifts or split weeks. I'm not sure yet. I'm still trying to figure it out with how these 12, 15 people will be working. I will say that I do want to make sure that we figure out our client services, customer service, because I had some really disappointing instances with both my daughter's school, my son's school, with people working from home and not being able to get in contact with people for days and almost 2 weeks even. So as we look at what that looks like with transitioning people from this very comfortable work from home situations, it's also that we are in a very people facing business, some of our positions. So we do have to look at that and what that means to our customer base. There are some positions, as we know, that with the lab and other, we realize that. So that's a whole different discussion on what that looks like then. But there are there are challenges to the work from home. For those who can, I think it's great, but we also need to make sure that we are covering that base. It's going to look different. Everything's going to look different, but I would like to make sure that we're looking at that. Just one note about the N95. N95 masks are also used in construction a lot. They're also used in people who deal with hazardous conditions, anything with asbestos, anything with their respiratory, where breathing is an issue. So it's not just medical. But now, because there is a shortage, they're saying for medical. But I see a lot of guys using that who are dealing with like painting or other construction type, where dust is coming towards. So it's not just medical. It's anything that's going to compromise their respiratory systems. That's why people shouldn't just use them just to walk around for air. But anyway, there's my comment.
President Albright, can I add one thing to respond to Vice?
Sure, go right ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Where'd she go?
Yes, Lisa.
Lisa, you're muted.
Sorry,
Yes.
my system shut down. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Vice President Sutta, thank you for bringing the issue of up around, specifically around customer service and response. I want to assure you that we have 24-hour response, and that has not changed. So if they call, they will speak to someone, and we still have all of our on-call staff available to respond. And that's one of the biggest things that, and actually Michael will talk about it in a minute, but one of the biggest changes we've made just recently, and because the governor's order changed for construction, is to make sure that one of the services that we were not able to do remotely, we now are able to do remotely. And that is everything that we do around looking at who can work remotely will be absolutely dictated by the job type and the need to who they interface with and who their customer is. So I just want to assure you that there will never be a negative impact to our customers and our community. That's why we're here, and that's our first and foremost concern. So I just want to make sure you know that's very much in our mind.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Weiner, you had your hand up?
Okay, I just changed my filters for my heating system, and they're making filters now that are fine enough to filter out COVID. So we might consider purchasing those going forward for our heating and cooling filters. I forget the name of the measurement, like DINV or something like that, but they do make hospital grade filters now for you know, our heating. So we might consider that.
All right, thank you, Director Weiner. Any further questions? Go ahead.
I do.
Go ahead, Director Stanley.
I just wanted to relate an experience that I had on Neighbor Next Door. I got I was checking my email, and somebody had complained about and sounded like a sewer issue, smell. And I didn't say who I was, but of course my name pops up, and I said, you might want to call the sewer the sewer people, and here's their phone number. And before just a few minutes, one, I had a little bit of problem getting through, but once I got through to the answering service, CSO was out there in like 5 minutes. It was pretty amazing. So I just want to go, yay, CSO. So they did a really good job.
Thank you, Director Stanley. I have nothing further, so let's move on to the next item, please. I think you're on mute, Sasha.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Item 7, matters from staff, general manager, and attorney. 7A, staff, general manager, attorney comments, communications, report on issues or matters pertaining to the overall operations of the district.
All right. General manager. Lisa, are you there?
I'm here, sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, I'm actually going to ask Michael he has an update, and I think, Justin, do you have anything else to update?
I do have an update.
So I'm going to ask Justin to do he has a quick update, and then I'm going to have Michael do his update.
Okay. All right.
Great. Okay, good evening again, board. I just want to give you an update on our fiscal year 2021 budget. You know, it hasn't been forgotten. We are in this is fiscal year 2021 is year 2 of the 2-year budget that the board adopted last year, and so we will be providing an update to what was adopted a little less than a year ago. And so things that we're looking at, that the numbers that need updating are things related to like our pension costs or OPEB costs. You know, we have updated numbers, adding additional funds for electronic initiatives, you know, that we're working on right now. You know, so document management system, some new office furniture, as we're going to have to, as we were already doing space planning, but we need to make sure we have enough funds to. With our new reality, we need to make sure that we've got the proper spacing in as well, and so that would require some new furniture. So those are just a couple of the examples of things that we'd be talking about with the budget update that I would bring to the board in June.
Okay, does anybody have questions for Justin? Let's start with you, Director Stanley.
No questions, thank you.
Director Weiner?
No.
Director Spada?
No.
Director? Okay. Vice President Sutter?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no questions. Michael?
Michael Savannah, Infrastructure and Planning Department Manager. I've got a couple of updates that I'd like to give the board and the public. The first one is about Hilltop Green emergency force main. The work is all completed on the Hilltop Green emergency force main repair. We are finalizing one last change order that we were working on, and then we are looking to bring something to the board. We're also working on the as-built of the new section of line that we put in. One of the things that the district is becoming a lot more diligent about, and we didn't have a great practice for in the past, was our as-built drawings, especially as they relate to some of our emergency repairs. So we're working on getting that stuff done. The only physical work to do is take a couple of measurements for our as-built plans, and then we need to bring a closeout to the board. Lakeside emergency force main repair, the work is completed. We have a couple of bins out there that have the spoils from the work that need to get picked up and removed. Once those are removed from the site, we'll be completely out of that site. We're also going through and working on the true up as we're doing that. So we're looking to bring a item to the board in the near future about that as well. Can I pause for a second, President Alvarado, and ask for any questions about those before I move on to?
Sure, absolutely. Director Stanley, any questions up to this point?
Yeah, I don't know what you mean by I don't understand the drawings that you're talking about.
No problem. I'm happy you asked that. So whenever we do any construction project that results in an asset for the district as it relates to pipe work or lift stations or a physical asset that we're going to have that we've gone through some sort of engineering design on, we have what are known as our bid documents, which is the design that the engineer or consultant or our staff put together and we use when we bid it out to contractors. A plan is only as good as the situation that you find yourself in. So a lot of times we put together plans and then we get out in the field and there's a pipe in the way or a rock in the way or a building in the way or something that we didn't anticipate. So then what happens is we have to make field decisions. And sometimes they deviate from the plan that we had bid out. When that happens, we need an accurate record of what we did in the field. Those are called as-built drawings or record drawings.
What drawings? That's what I couldn't understand. As filled?
As built. As it was built.
Okay, gotcha. Go ahead.
So once we complete the work, there's usually a set of red lines or marked up drawings that the contractor or our construction management has provided. We'll turn those into a set of as-built or record drawings, and we'll keep those on file. If we ever have to go into this line, we look at the as-built drawings because that's an accurate account of what happened in the field. So what we're currently doing is putting together a set of accurate account of what happened in the field at Hilltop Green, so that should we ever need to go in there again, we can find our line, we know where the bins are, we know where the insertion points are.
Great. Thank you so much.
No problem. We found that through our, and this is a bit, it's on the same subject, but a bit removed. A number of our projects that we've worked on, we found that we don't have a great set of as-builts for some of these lines where we've done repairs. So we're trying to be really diligent about making sure that we're capturing the most accurate and recent data so that if we ever have to go back in, we don't run into some of these problems. We found that actually here on Hilltop Green, where we had a set of drawings that said that the pipe was in one location, and when we dug down, it was sort of there, but not where the drawing said it was. It was at a different depth. It was a different material. All of those things are important. If you have an emergency and you don't know what type of material it is, you run off and you buy all the wrong material and you dig it up and you don't have anything that you can fix when you get down there in the middle of the night with sewage flowing. So it's extremely important for us to have as accurate as possible as-built and record drawings for everything that we do.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Mike, President Alvarado, can I ask Michael to add an update on just one more minor thing?
Sure. But I think he wanted us to answer questions, ask questions up until this point. He's going to continue, but
Oh, he's going to keep going.
Yeah, let's give directors a shot at answering questions. So, Director Weiner, you have any questions up until this point?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, Director Cepeda?
No questions.
Vice President Sutter?
Good for now.
Okay, I'm good for now as well. You can continue, Michael.
The other item that I'd like to update you on is some of the remote processes that we've improved during this COVID shelter in place. When we first went into this shelter in place, we didn't have much ability to serve the public as it relates to our engineering function and support the public. So our engineering division deals with our certificates of compliance for real estate transactions, our plan review for any construction or remodeling job that anyone wants to do, our permitting process for lateral repairs and replacements and things of that nature, our plan reviews and that sort of stuff. So we didn't have a mechanism or vehicle for doing those sort of tasks. So when we originally went into our shelter in place, that was a part of our function and of the organization's function that we were not able to provide to the public. We immediately got in and started looking at how do we provide this service to the public while still maintaining not only social distance, but remote working conditions. And we did a really good job, I think, of turning around some procedures that allow us to do that. So we currently are available to and have the ability to provide these services remotely and virtually to residents and contractors and to the public at large. On our website, there's actually a link that you can go to that describes how to get these services. We've set up a independent mailbox that all permitting requests will go directly to, and it's linked to 3 or 4 staff members' mailboxes, so they're immediately notified when someone needs a permit or a plan review or that sort of thing. We started working on a process, and we're just about done with the first phase of that, by which, and it should roll out soon, by which residents will be able to enter in their information on the website and start the permitting process without any need to have a staff person present. However, they have the ability to coordinate and discuss with staff what needs to be done to get a permit. We can create a permit and send it to them in a PDF so that we don't have to print it out at the counter and waste paper and stamp it and give it to them so that they can take it off and lose it. We actually have the ability to send them a PDF of a permit. We have the ability to do plan review virtually by having them email us a PDF, and then we review it. We've created electronic stamps and signatures so that we can stamp and sign, so that people have the ability to go to the city and the building department and have their plans reviewed, having gotten our stamp. We have the ability to provide video inspections by having residents or contractors email us electronic files that are the sewer videos, which we use to do video inspections to tell them whether or not they need to repair, replace, can receive a certificate of compliance based on the condition of their lateral. So we have the ability to do that now remotely. We also have the ability to issue certificates of compliance, which we didn't have the ability to do before. This certificate of compliance allows residents and real estate agents to sell pieces of property and be aligned with and in accordance with our ordinance. So we've done a lot of work in making sure that your concern, Director Sudduth, is satisfied in that we can provide services to customers and residents and contractors and real estate agents and all of those that we were able to provide services to in the office from an engineering perspective. We can now provide services from home. Even as it relates to our lateral repairs, we've developed a method by which we can do virtual inspections, so our inspector doesn't have to go out and actually be on site. It's always better if we can go out and be on site, but for the time being, when we're in this shelter in place and people need to replace their lateral, unless it's an extreme emergency and we absolutely have to be there, we have a vehicle by which we are extremely certain that we can do a virtual inspection, and it's a bit more work for the contractor on the ground, but we can be satisfied that it's installed correctly. The project can go on and we can still remain in safe distance by having our folks working remotely and the resident being served so that they don't have a lapse in service, and they can also move forward with any other construction projects or home sales or repairs that they need to do. So I wanted to update the board and the public on that. Again, it's on our website. We are working to make it a bit more easily seen on our website. We put it on our website and we're working to make it jump out on our website a bit more, but it is on there and we do provide the service. We've done some advertising, so to speak, in that we've reached out to all of the contractors that we do normal business with. They come in on a regular basis. We have them on an email list. When we do these sort of stops and starts, we usually send out an email blast. So we've done that, and we're doing what we can to make this as visible as possible. Make sure that we can serve the public during this time. So I'm open to any questions or comments or concerns anyone may have.
Before we do questions, Andrew, was this the subject you wanted him to cover?
Michael more than covered the item I wanted to make sure he touched on.
Okay, very good. Director Stanley, any questions?
Yes, Michael, I was listening to you and clicking around on the website, and so I wasn't totally focused on the website. And I can't find what you're talking about, so it's not jumping out at me. And so if I'm a member of the public and I just want to know what to do about getting a lateral permit, then I want something to come down on a drop down menu, or as you said, jump up and bite me from the webpage that says lateral permits. So I can't even find what you were talking about. So perhaps it needs some more work.
Thank you for that. As you can see, I've shared my screen with you all, and one of the things I was saying is we're working to make this more visible. We definitely understand that it needs some more work. If you look at the screen that I'm sharing with you guys, right in the middle where it says now offering online services for permits, if you click that, it tells you everything you need to know right here.
Maybe we can put that in a different color, like red.
Again, we're working on a couple of things with CB Strategies, and that's a great suggestion, and we'll look into that. And red and moving, and there's a couple of other things that we could do to make it pop out. What we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that we got it out and we got it. We were able to provide service to residents and contractors in a very short time frame, being that the update to the ordinance eased the restrictions on construction. We wanted to make sure we could get people back working, and we're definitely working to make it as visible as we possibly can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Stanley. Director Weiner?
I have no.
Director Spada?
Michael, I just want to say thank you for doing that. Don't even have words. I believe you're putting our district in such a great place in the future. I mean, you're thinking so far ahead that I love it. We're not even thinking about today. We're thinking about the tomorrows, and you're helping contractors get back to work. I mean, you're doing a lot of really great work. I went to the website a few days ago looking for the agenda packet, and that was the first thing I saw was that link. So maybe we all had a little different eye, but that was the first thing I was like, oh, what is that? And I clicked on it just to see what it did, because I had not seen that before. So great work. I really like where you and your team have taken this to, and your vision for where you're taking the district with that. So thank you for that. That is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Spada. Vice President Sutter?
No, it's good job. Thank you.
Yeah, I echo their sentiments. I think you did a heck of a job, and you're setting us up for the future. And that spot on the website, I mean, I saw it right away myself. So I guess different eyes see different things. But Director Stanley's suggestion is a good one. You know, if you highlight it in red because it's something that people really need right now, I'm sure it'd be much easier for them to find. But, you know, I'll leave that up to staff to work with that and see how you're going to handle that. All right, so who is there anybody else we need to hear in this area? How about the attorney? Any comments from Mick?
No comments from me tonight, Mr. President.
All right, thank you very much. So I guess we'll move on to the next item then.
Could I just make a quick comment?
Sure, go right ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I wanted to just quickly thank all of the staff. I think you're seeing the amount of, you're seeing the department heads, and so you're seeing all of the work that is continuing to happen, and you're going to hear a presentation shortly from Aaron, and also see that even in the midst of all of this, the things that we're continuing to be able to get done and push out are pretty incredible, and we're moving the organization in a direction that is not just in response to what's happening with the public health crisis, but also in a direction that we want to go with the district to make it a much more modern organization, one where our community has a way to interface with us, even if it's not in a way that people wanted to in the past. It's what people want now. So I really just wanted to thank and acknowledge my department heads and the staff sort of behind the scenes that you're not seeing, as they've been doing a really, really incredible job during this time, which has been challenging for a lot of different reasons. So that was not quite a brief comment.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, I believe Vice President Sutter had to step away, so I'm not sure if she's still with us, but if she comes back, just chime in and say you're back, Vice President Sutter. Next item, please.
Item 7B, receive a presentation on the water quality and resource recovery plan operations.
Good evening, President Alvarado, directors and staff, Aaron Weiner, Water Quality and Resource Recovery Manager. I'm going to wrest control of the screen and see how it works and launch right into this, this presentation. Okay, so I'm here tonight to provide this plant operations and process update to you. As you can see, it's an informational report. I've been with the district for 8 months now, and we've talked a lot, during various meetings about things that are going on with operations and maintenance. And this report, really focuses on the operations and maintenance piece, but it also wraps in some of the capital projects as well. So I'm gonna go through and talk a little bit about why we're here. I know we're getting late in the evening, so I'm gonna try to carry through quickly. And if there's any questions, feel free, or we can wait till the end. So in respect to the nuts and bolts of the presentation, we're gonna talk a little bit about challenges, program improvements, staffing, capital projects as mentioned, successes, and then close with future developments.
Okay, and Aaron, I hate to
Yes.
interrupt you, but we're going to wait for questions when you finish your presentation, okay?
Okay, great. Can everybody hear me clearly and see everything okay?
I can.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So really, this is the challenges, the bullet list of the challenges that we're going to talk about. And a lot of these will go into more detail through the presentation itself. And so really just going to touch on a couple bullets, several years of transitional departmental leadership, that's a big thing. I think folks know that before I got here 8 months ago, there was a year and a half or so, I think was the time frame where we had 3 or 4 people working as the water quality manager, at various times. And so that kind of transition, it brings instability and it brings kind of a lot of things with it that really we've been working on in the last 8 months. The second thing is lack of safety focus. And I want to be careful here. And I don't want it to sound like that, safety wasn't a concern or people weren't thinking about safety. But I think it ties back into the first bullet there. When you have a transition and you have people, leading for a couple months at a time or whatever the number is, those folks are coming in and they're just trying to, keep things going and try to understand what their responsibilities are. So it's really hard to stay focused on safety. And safety for me has to start at the top level and really, flow down through the organization. And really that's what we've been focusing on, for the last 8 months. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. Aging critical infrastructure, lack of accurate and accessible plans and documents. And that's the last bullet I'm really going to talk about here before we proceed into the rest of the presentation. But I think one of the things there is that we have a lot of programs and plans and operations and maintenance manuals and regulatory documents and permits. And one of the things that I found was they were scattered throughout the department in various offices, common areas, partly in the library, and then a lot of them were on, in electronic form on our network somewhere in a file. So that was a real challenge, was pulling all that stuff together and really understanding what we were working with and where everything is. And one more thing, there's a lot of pictures in here that'll make this go, much more quickly as we proceed. So the last couple of bullets we'll talk about more later. So aging infrastructure. This is a picture of our effluent pump station motor control, excuse me, and drive system. And as you can see from the bullet up top, this is circa 1970s, early 1970s. And if you notice in the top left-hand corner of the picture, there is a plastic sheeting there. And at one point there was a roof leak, and this is all high voltage equipment. So I don't really need to drill down into the details about why that's problematic. But the good thing is, we're going to talk a little bit later about the roof project, which repaired all our roofs, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. And this slide I just included because this is a new motor control and drive system that is located elsewhere in the treatment plant. And this is what the modern technology should look like and will look like when we get through some of the projects that we have in the pipeline, so to speak. And this system was installed when we did the electrical upgrades prior to my arrival. I believe that project concluded about 2 years ago. So this is a picture of our digesters, and I think everybody's been to the plant at one point or another. On the left-hand side, you see our flare that flares methane gas, the two digester tanks in the background, and all the orange piping is all gas, methane gas piping, water traps, flame arresters, and various things. And the important note there is that all that equipment is also circa early 1970s. And I think we've talked about it a lot, that is our priority project right now. We're cleaning the digester in the back, and we're doing an assessment of this whole system because of its criticality to our operations. Safety program improvements, or program improvements, first talking about safety. And these are the top list of bullets or items that we've implemented, since I got here. I will say, that in the last 2 months, we have had to slow down on a lot of things, mainly because of the revised staffing plans and the reduced staffing plans that we're working with. We haven't been meeting with all staff regularly, obviously, because they're not on site. So the COVID response and our reduction in staff has really slowed down a lot of this activity. But we did really get a good start in the first 6 months, and we're gonna continue forward. And as a matter of fact, we're working with HR right now to implement some remote safety and other training opportunities. And then in the bottom there, talking about improved safety performance, there's a couple bullets. And the dreadful bullet is that we had 4 injuries in the last 4 months of 2019. One of them was a serious injury. But the good news is that in the last 4 months, dating to the end of, or actually the middle of December, we've had no injuries. So I think that's really good news, and it's a testament to some extent to the work that we've done in focusing on safety. And then the last bullet is that the safety issues were experienced in 3 of our different work groups. And 3 of the 4 were hand injuries, lacerations, or punctures. So additional program improvements, I talked a little bit before, or referred on the first slide, I think, to the fact that in the past, we've had one operations supervisor responsible for 24/7 operations, which is why we asked for and the board approved the second operations supervisor. And really, one of the things that happens when you don't have supervision across all shifts is you wind up with kind of uneven operations, people making changes that aren't necessary all the time, and things aren't standard necessarily. And one of the biggest thing about wastewater operations is that wastewater treatment plants they love a steady state. They don't like changes. When you make a change, they like it when you wait 5 or 7 days to see what happens, especially a major process change. So the couple things that we did were we focused on eliminating those changes and requiring approval by either the operations supervisor or myself before making any major changes. We'll talk a little bit more about the flash report just real briefly on the next slide. And we made some changes to the biological process in the last eight months that I think have improved our treatment and the stability of the process as well. And I'm not going to get into the rest of those bullets because we'll talk a little bit more about those later. So this is the flash report I talked about. This goes out every day to me and my 4 supervisors, and as well Andrew. And what it is it's a daily snapshot. I think I've talked to you about this before. It tells us what the critical process indicators are. It outlines the process targets, and it tracks water quality, both from the permit perspective and the water that we're sending to East Bay Mud for recycle. And after I look at this, I can call our operations staff, and if there are any questions I have or changes required, we do that in a joint discussion with the chief plant operator, who is our operations supervisor. And this particular report that comes out every day helps me sleep at night. So staffing, talking a little bit about staffing, we have a new safety position as mentioned, and we're actually going to, I think that's coming back to you for a modification in another couple weeks, I believe. We have the operations supervisor position, which is going to open for recruitment, I mentioned on Monday, and one open operator slot. You know, one of the things that we did, we went from 2 operators to 3 operators per shift for the first 6 months, but then because of COVID, we went back to 2 operators because of social distancing. So that's had some impact to our operations. And we've really in the last several months just been keeping things running, you know, from an operations and maintenance standpoint, similar to what's been discussed by Michael, you know, related to the CSO functions and other work groups. So we have been short-staffed at time due to extended leave for various reasons, because, you know, for operations personnel and maintenance personnel. And the last bullet there is that the recruitment process for some of our openings has been slowed. It was actually stopped as we went through these COVID-19 related adjustments. So I'm going to go through a couple of recently completed capital projects. On the left-hand side there is a picture of our new HVAC equipment that's been installed throughout the treatment facility, mainly at the admin building, but on, I believe, several other buildings. And then on the right-hand side, you see a portion of our new roof, a new roof. And I think that project is 95% complete. And those 2 projects will, wrap up when we continue or restart capital work next week or so. Excuse me. And then another recently completed project was the influent pump valve replacement that we did last fall, which we talked about. And basically that's a picture of the new valves and the nicely new painted manifold. And next couple of slides are going to be about Synagro. I think we've talked about cleaning the digester, and we're working on our first digester cleaning right now. It's been underway for about 2 weeks. In the left-hand picture there is a close-up of how they're pumping material out of the digester. And you can see there's a bunch of rags on the left, which is a very small percentage of what they've pulled out of that digester. This is just part of what their process is. It's a very nasty and difficult endeavor. And on the right-hand side there is that same picture, but you're backed up about 30 or 40 feet and shows some of Synagro's equipment. So all in all, at this point, this is on the right-hand side, that's Synagro's tanks, their presses and centrifuges and piping and various other apparatus that they use. And you can see, you can get an idea why this project is very expensive, why it costs between $150,000 and $200,000 to clean one of these digesters, because they have to mobilize all this equipment with their staff, set it up, take it down. On the left-hand side, you can see a trailer with conveyors and the grit dumping into those conveyors after it's dewatered. And essentially, after all is said and done, they'll have removed about 200 to 210, I believe, tons of rags and inorganic grit out of the bottom of one digester. And I think we've talked about it before. It's been 11 years since since the digesters were cleaned, and it should be done on a 5 to 8 year frequency. So we're going to go now into planned capital or capital assisted projects. And there are certain projects that we run out of the plant that don't, say if they don't require significant engineering, it might be a straight pump replacement. We can do that from the plant with assistance from capital. But there's also obviously projects that the capital folks and the capital program folks will manage exclusively with our interaction. So this one is this is another picture of our effluent pump station, and it shows you our effluent pumps on the left and the control system on the right, which I showed you in a previous slide. And again, these are all original equipment from the early 1970s. And most of the pumps on the left have been rebuilt, and one of them is, you can see, missing, and it's no longer rebuildable, so it needs to be replaced. And we'll be replacing all of those hopefully this summer. So next slide is basically a picture of where we're going to put the new Vector and septage dumping station. And I'm not completely sure, but I'm fairly sure that this is one of the projects that's going to kick off fairly quickly when we restart the capital program and projects group. And one of the things, the focuses of this effort is, this is in the headworks area. And so what we're doing is we're consolidating all of our odor producing activities into that area. And then in the future, they'll be mitigated by, it'll be easier to mitigate this centralized odor producing area by odor control. And this is another planned project, which was planned for this summer. I'm not sure yet if it's going to be pushed out. That's something that we're talking about. But this, you can see these valves again. This is the effluent pump station, and that pipe right in front of you is the pipe that takes our effluent and sends it to East Bay Mud. But all those valves in the background are all circa 1970s as well. And you can really tell from this that 1970s is when the bulk of this treatment facility was built. So just another project upcoming, the motors and the motor control apparatus and the pumps for our influent pump station. And so next slide is about successes. We've showed you that we've improved safety, standardized operations and communication. We have better coordination with the capital projects with the capital projects and the IMP group. I think we've worked very hard on that, and a lot of this stuff we'll continue to work very diligently on, and we need to. We've produced consistently very good water quality for East Bay Mud and whatever's sent down the pipe to Richmond for discharge. I think on average we're recycling about 70% of our water to East Bay Mud. And that'll increase over the summer months when we get less flow through the plant due to I&I. And that's inflow and infiltration during storms. We've recruited several new operators, and I think we have higher employee morale. We completed a formal team building with representatives from, I'm going to need help from Andrew or Justin, R&G, the folks who did our team building and do our contract HR, RGS. Thank you. I blanked on that. Thank you for the help. But they were actually working with us, and we did one training with the whole group for I think 4 or 5 consecutive months on team building and trust building, and I think that was a very good opportunity for folks to get to know each other, and I think it really helped with morale and the trust. And we did, as mentioned in the next to last bullet, receive another, I think the 18th or 19th in a row NACWA award, which we'll get this July, I believe. 0 NPDES violations, and as I mentioned in the last bullet, there's still a lot of work to do, and we're doing it every day. And I think this is the last slide, just talks a little bit about coming attractions and what we're going to focus on. We're looking at improved safety, focus, and performance, as I mentioned a couple times. Continuing to improve interdepartmental communications and cooperation. focusing on employee development, retention, and strategic planning. Transition to production-based operations, and this is the only bullet here I'm gonna touch on. And really what that is there's a couple different kinds of operations. One of them is more of a kind of an observation monitoring mode of operations where folks, operation staff in particular, look and watch and feedback on problems and monitor and make operational and process adjustments. But it's not so much focused on housekeeping and developing SOPs and doing other things that are measurable. And what we're focusing on and what we want to do is transition into a more production-based, because really what we do is we do production. We're producing clean water. It's manufacturing, at its core, and we want to be fully utilized to stay up on all the things that we need to do, whether it's housekeeping, maintenance, anything that our operations group can do, developing, revising operations plans, or whatever the case may be. So that's one of the things that we're really focusing on, and I think having a second operations supervisor is going to help us there, especially at nighttime. And then just a couple other things that we've been talking to you, the board, about. The greenhouse gas baseline is just about complete, as is the NG project evaluation. We've got a stormwater equalization expansion evaluation we're doing, and a couple other things that are noted on the bottom, including working with the city of Richmond on various West County agency projects. And as promised, I think we moved through very quickly. I think that was the last slide, if I don't go backwards. And now ready for questions.
All right, let's start with Director Stanley with questions.
Aaron, thank you for that. I actually have a list of questions. Hopefully they can easily be answered. When you talk about safety, we're still talking about the safety personnel that we were having trouble recruiting for, and now we're changing it a bit so that maybe we find a better fit. Is that correct?
Exactly, yes. Okay, great.
And then critical infrastructure is when the evaluation is done, whatever is being done, you're going to be able to come to us and say all this stuff and give us a list of what needs to be replaced in some order of priority. Is that correct?
Yeah, and there's a lot of crossover here into in terms of those projects that dovetail in with what Michael and his group are charged with and do. And there are capital plans and programs, and it's really all wrapped in there. Yes. So you've seen most of what needs to get done. This is just kind of a recap from an operational perspective, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Certainly, and just a comment on your scattered documents all over the place. That certainly seems like a big job, and good on you for finding all that stuff. I had a question about security. When I took a tour, I think it was last year, we had some sort of open house. And I noticed that we just had like regular screen doors or just open doors on little buildings. And I was wondering, in this day of terrorism and whatever, have we ever thought about putting on at least, I don't mind screen doors as long as they're security doors. I don't like open doors where people can get to machinery. Have we ever considered some sort of pad at the doors that people have a code or something to get into little buildings?
Yeah, you're talking about kind of the peripheral buildings at the plant, not necessarily the admin, but some of the other areas.
Yes.
I think it's something, Director Stanley, that we need to look at. We do have a safety improvement program where we're looking at a lot of things, including an automated plant entry gate to replace the one that was creamed by a driver late last year or early this year. And we do have other things that we're looking at, but I think that's something that I haven't got to yet that we do need to look at, just throughout the plant and evaluate it at a high level and see what we need to do.
Okay, so, and when you do look at that, maybe it's something that would trigger a camera making a recording so somebody can see exactly what's going on in case we got some kid or somebody who's not authorized to be on our property, so we can call the police right away. I don't know. This is your business. Also, it was a really good example of when I was talking to Michael about how I didn't see anything. Now, granted, most of my attention was on what Michael was saying, but I didn't see on the website the thing about permits that two other directors clearly saw. So when we're talking about safety, if there's an emergency, have you thought about posters that are in good places, colorful places, that are colorful and says, this is what you do if this is what's happening? Is that on part of your to-do list?
Well, we do have safety corners in the plant, that talk about what to do in the event of, for example, a severe injury. Call 911 and the other list of things that you do. So that's part of it. I think we have certain emergency response plans that that would address a whole host of other things that probably need to be updated.
Okay.
And would wrap some of those things in with it.
That is part of what we're going to be looking at with as we get the safety program ramped up, and also just establishing what you refer to as just-in-time training, so that you'd have a really simple to use manual right there that says this is how you start this emergency generator, and you haven't had any training on it. You've got a short couple of pages there that you could get it up and going. Somebody who's reasonably knowledgeable.
Okay, and a comment that I think a year or so ago, somebody had went through at night and changed a bunch of settings, and it caused a bit of commotion, and now you're saying that there's approval that needs to happen before people could do that. Is it an approval that is kind of like you're locked in, you're locked out type approval, so that somebody can't arbitrarily change settings regardless of approval?
So I'm actually not aware of that. I've been around long enough where I've worked in places where it has been thought or at least speculated that happened, but I'm not aware that it's happened in at West County. Nobody's talked to me about that, but that's certainly always a possibility. If you get a rogue employee, I don't know if that did in fact happen. I don't know what you do about it. For example, we have two operators who work by themselves, at night. And obviously there's a lot of trust there. These are professionals. Many of them have been working with us for a long time. I would be hard pressed to see, somebody, an operator doing it, and all our gates and things are locked at night. So I just don't know necessarily how that would happen. But
I believe Mr. Dominguez and I talked about it, so you might ask him. And then you said that we're up to a staff of 3 during a shift, but now we're down to 2. So is part of the plan to keep 2 physical people there, and then 1 person perhaps is viewing stuff as you were talking about remotely, or what is that plan?
Yeah, so I think ultimately our reduction to 2 operators from 3 was simply a spacing, social distancing thing. Just so it was just that. Ultimately, I expect we will get back to 3 operators. The remote monitoring is not something that we've looked at from the standpoint of our staff level operators. The remote monitoring is capability that I have or will have, and that Joe Maharukan has as the operations supervisor. But it's definitely something that we could we could expand, and we should look at that, and we will look at that.
Okay, and then my last question is, you didn't really talk about lagoons this time, but last time you had mentioned that there's a large percentage of our contribution to greenhouse gases is coming from our lagoons. Is that going to be in a report coming to us sometime soon? The alternatives to that?
Yes, that is highlighted in the greenhouse gas report that SAGE is finalizing as we speak. Well, maybe not at this exact minute, but generally they're finalizing now. Yes, and that is contained in that report.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm done. President Alvarado, I'm done.
Sorry, I was on mute. Director Weiner.
I know that when we started cleaning out the digester, there was a concern about its integrity. And have we determined yet? Has that been determined yet? The integrity of the structures?
Excuse me. It has not. The sequencing is that we finish cleaning the inside of the digester, which will likely be another week or two. I'm hoping for another week. And then at that point, Carollo goes in. They have started their structural and conditional assessment, but they need to get in the digester after it's clean to do their last day of work, and then it'll be some weeks after that that they create the final report for us. It may be a month or even 5 weeks after that, and that will drive our direction forward.
Thank you.
Anything further, Director Weiner?
That would be my only question. Thank you for the report.
Director Cepeda.
No questions other than just a statement. Aaron, great job. Thank you for all your great achievements for you and your team. So thank you for all that. That's a really good report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Sutter.
No, I like the numbers on the safety. Headed in a great direction. That's what I have close to my heart. So thank you. Good report.
Thank you.
I echo the same sentiment. I thought your report was thorough. It was good. You condensed it to a point where it was we could sit through it. So good job there. One thing for the board: let's in the future keep our questions limited to the scope of the agenda item. Next item, please.
Item 8, matters from members of the board. 8A, meeting reports. Reports on committee activities, conferences, seminars, and meetings pertaining to the overall operations of the district.
All right, let's start with Director Stanley.
Nothing.
Director Weiner.
Yeah, so I attended the West County Agency, and we discussed how projects are funded and the processes that each member follows to get budgeting approved and funding transferred to agency projects. I couldn't read my writing, so I went to our website to see what the minutes had to say. And I found that the West County Agency section was behind on publishing minutes. So they were back in 2019 and even 2018 for each one of the sections. So that might be checked out. And what else? And then I went to the El Sobrante Chamber of Commerce meeting, and they were going to do a great community service. They were going to put up signs congratulating De Anza High School students for their graduation, since no high schools can have graduation because of COVID. And they were going to put up the school colors in balloons in El Sobrante. So I don't know, I guess I should bring that up in the good of the order, the possibility of us doing something like that.
Okay, Director Weiner, is that it?
That's it.
All right, Director Cepeda.
No reports for me. All is good. Actually, sorry, I guess this is the time where I would say this. I was asked to write a little blurb about what I do and what the agency, how the agency is doing, especially in the times of COVID, for the Bay Area Reporter. It's a local LGBTQI newspaper in San Francisco, and they just wanted to see what we were doing up here in the East Bay. So I'll be putting something together and working with staff to make sure that I don't say anything inappropriate in regards to the agency, but I won't be speaking on behalf of the agency. It would just be a quick overview of sort of what happens on a day-to-day from the director's point of view. And I might have some tidbits from the agency, and I'll be able to get some of that from the staff. I already spoke with the GM, with Lisa. So I just want to give you guys a heads up that will be happening. And just a quick note too on the city of Richmond. As you know, they have their own wastewater agency. If you hear anybody talking about us doing a fee increase, please make sure you tell them where they live, that we're not doing that fee increase, because I've had a couple of people contact me asking why are we doing a rate increase. I had to tell them that they live in a different agency, not the Richmond one, that we are not the ones doing a rate increase. So that's just a note there for those of you who might hear something about there. Other than that, that is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cepeda. Vice President Sutter?
Yes, so before I tell you, I'm going to piggyback off of what Director Cepeda just said. I've spent a lot of time working on this issue in Richmond about their rate increase and why staved off their rate increase for another month. They're going to be talking. I was at the last two board meetings, and the last meeting, if you need some good entertainment, log on to the Richmond City Council meetings. You'll bring some popcorn. Sure, you'll have a lot of fun. It's quite the adventure. That one went quite a long time. They talk over each other, so you have fun trying to decipher what was said, but it was a very interesting meeting. I attended something that was dealing with achieving Black health and equity and COVID-19. We talked a lot about what was interesting. Well, my portion of it was dealing with water and water resources in Black and Brown communities. We talked about that April 18th. I told you guys about one of the projects that I'm working on. We also have, I attended the El Cerrito Democrats meeting and the West County Democrats meeting. And there were several of us who were in both clubs. And so there was a little bit of a turf war going on, dealing with not just the wastewater, but water and what's going on at Point Malati. So, and how the development is going to be happening out at Point Malati. How that is going to affect us is it's a trickle-down effect with development rights and how people are fighting over land use rights and legislative rights. And there's just a bunch of attorneys who are getting involved. And most of them are coming from outside of Richmond, which was my big argument. People from El Cerrito and Berkeley going into areas like Richmond and West County, telling those residents what's good for them. The reason I'm bringing that up here is because I feel like that's the same thing that happens in our districts. What we are getting ready to go into district elections. So West County wastewater was brought up. West County wastewater, West Contra Costa Unified School District, and Richmond City Council decided they're all going into wards. Those names were invoked as something about, how they're being split up, and those elections are coming up. So those of you who are up for election need to be listening to some of these meetings so you can hear how these conversations are taking place. But these people from the outside of those communities are putting their own spin on what should be good for communities that they don't live in. There's a couple of One Water meetings that are coming up, and ones that we've been doing on Zoom on how we can get the word out. I love the articles on the website. Thank you, Miss Lisa. I know you knew I would see it. The Don't Flush. Thank you. I don't know who put it there, but thank you. I did see it. So thank you very much. And I just snatched it to retweet it. So thank you so much. Thank you, President Alvarado. I'm good.
Okay. Thank you, Vice President Sutter. I attended several meetings, including the one in San Pablo via Zoom, of course. And one thing I want everyone to know, if anyone has any San Pablo constituents, the City of San Pablo approved a grant for up to $250,000, up to $1,000 per family. It's called a Housing Assistance Grant, and you have to be unemployed due to COVID. And you have to provide some documentation, but that doesn't make it too cumbersome. If you know anyone who's interested, just have them go to the website, City of San Pablo, .gov, of course, and as soon as you go on, it's right on the first page. There, you just got to scroll down a little bit, but you'll see it. Okay, so that may be of interest to some of your constituents. All right, that's it for me. Next item, please.
Item 8B, good of the order, report on events and activities which may be of interest to members of the board and community members.
Okay, Director Stanley.
Sorry, no.
Director Weiner.
Yeah, I wanted to see if staff could find some time to honor our high school graduates within our district. It's a very big deal. I recall way back when high school graduation, and COVID has completely shut down every high school, and they can't celebrate their good work and hard struggle to get through high school. So if we could put out balloons of different high school colors and maybe on our sign say congratulate the high schools in our district, that would be a wonderful thing.
I also think it's a great idea, Director Weiner. Anything else? Director Weiner?
No, that's it. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Cepeda.
Just one thing, East Brothers Brewery in Richmond, on this Friday, they're going to be having a special beer that you can go pick up. So they have pickup only. And it's going to, 20% of that is going to be going towards COVID-19 resources in the city of Richmond and the area. I think they were trying to raise about $1 million, not just them, but other organizations as well. And they're just trying to help. So they're putting some of the profit back to this towards COVID-19. So if anybody likes beer, and if you're around on Friday, look up East Brothers Brewery in the marina in Richmond, and you can go and get some beer, take it home. Don't drink and drive. Once you get home, you can drink it, because then you'll spill it. That's it for me.
Thank you, Director Cepeda. Vice President Sutter?
Well, don't drink beer, but it's Ramadan for me, so I'm doing everything I can to do as much as I can for as many people as I can. But on top of that, if you have not registered for CSBA special districts legislative days, I encourage you to do that. It's all digital this year. It's on 19th and 20th. 19th and 20th. So I encourage all of us to do it if you're so inclined. I've already registered, and I think I've already been paired. So if you have not, please go on and register so you can get paired, and we can all do our part to get as much legislation either passed or put forth. Speak to our legislators either in our area or in our region so that we can get these bills passed, especially the wipes and pipes, one big one. So as many of us as possible need to be there. Lisa, it would be great if we can get some of our staff and our workforce to do it too. It's not just for us board members. I'm actually getting some people from AC Transit to do it as well because it's a special district. So.
Okay.
All set, Vice President Sutter?
Yes, sir. It's all up to you.
All right, I have nothing, so let's go on to the next item.
Item 8C, future agenda items, informal observations and inquiries regarding the business of the district or requests for placement of items of interest on a future agenda.
All right, Director Stanley, anything for future meeting agenda items?
I don't think so. No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director Weiner?
I have nothing.
Director Cepeda?
Yeah, I would like to see if we can bring forth the list of all of the proclamations for the year next month. I think the list has already been done, so that way we can get it approved and be done with it. Instead of doing it month by month, it will be great to just have the list pre-approved and we just know what's going to be happening throughout the month. That's something that we worked on last month, so if we can get that for the next agenda, that would be great. So again, we can just get them out of the way. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good idea. I just want to check with our attorney, Mick. Can we do that, by the way?
Can you do a list of proclamations that you're going to do for the year? Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you, sir. Vice President Sutter?
Yes, it's fine. One more comment. There's been a lot of cancellations of events that we usually attend, so we may want to look at that. Because I know like El Sobrano Stroll is being canceled. So I don't know if we want to take a look at.
Yeah, well, that may not be a bad idea. Maybe staff can provide us an updated calendar like they normally do.
Yeah, like what we're going to do in place of what we usually do for our public awareness or something. I mean, I don't know what that topic would, I mean, maybe that's the topic, public outreach.
Yeah.
What we're going to do in place of that, because many of our big events have been canceled.
Okay, that's a valid point. Point taken. Anything further?
I can provide an update on that next time because we do have information. Yeah.
Thank you.
That'll work.
I think Director Weiner wants your attention.
Go ahead, Director Weiner. Director Weiner.
He's on mute.
Is the mayor's conference going to be Zooming?
That's an interesting question.
The mayor's office from where?
No, the mayor's conference, the one for every month.
Oh, the mayor's conference. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. Gina or Justin, do you know if how that's happening?
I don't know, but I could actually look into it.
Okay, so we can send out an email.
Gina.
Thank you very much, Gina.
Thank you very much.
Is that all, Director Weiner? Director Weiner, you all set?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you very much. And as I said, I have nothing, so next item, please.
Item 9, adjournment.
All right, so that brings us an adjournment for the evening at 9:04 p.m. I want to thank everybody for attending via Zoom. Stay safe out there, and hopefully soon we'll be in a better position. Okay? Take
Thank
care.
you.
Great night, everybody.
Good
Thank
night.
you.